I just want to say thank you so much, Sadie, for joining me today. I'm so honored that you're here, and I'm so excited for everyone to get to know you. Because honestly, in the brief time that we've been to knowing each other, I've already learned so much from you. And let's just say it as it is. Like, it is kind of crazy times. We're in June 2020, and
It is. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. It's really exciting for me to be here.
no,
It's such a pleasure to have met you.
oh, it's so awesome to have you here, because like I said, it's definitely, I always say, like, it feels like the world's kind of on its head at the moment.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes.
and, and I'm really making a conscious effort over the last little bit. Like, I've really been wanting to surround myself with, people that I really think are, as leaders, and that people that are wanting to address all the many different issues that we really, in a kind of, I think, in a brutal way, where there's been a lot of awakening with the, first the COVID, then obviously everything that's happened with, George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. And I think it's been brutal, but I think, my hope in a way is that it is kind of awakening a lot of people to real issues that we need to talk about. And
Yeah.
like I said, people like yourself that are really coming, are willing and, having the courage to talk about these issues, but really doing it from a place of, of love and compassion, and really wanting to educate people is, so beautiful. So I'd love you to just kind of introduce yourself to everyone, and just, tell you a little about who you are, your story, and just honestly as well, like how you're generally feeling, at the moment, and what's kind of going, through your head with everything that's happening.
Thank you. So my name is Sedruola Maruska, but most people call me Sadie. So it's much easier. I find it saying it that way usually kind of breaks the ice, and people are like,
Yeah.
oh, thank goodness. I don't know how to pronounce
Like
your
people like me, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yes. I am a first generation Haitian American, and I live in Massachusetts. I'm married. I have 2 kids, and I am a coach. I'm a personal development coach. And a lot of times that becomes a very broad scope. And I did that on purpose because when I first decided to start coaching, I wasn't sure which area of coaching I wanted to go into. And so I said, okay, personal development encompasses so many things that if someone comes to me and they say, well, I want to build my business, well, I've done that. So I can help you. I can coach you through that. Or I'm I procrastinate a lot. I want to stop procrastinating. Okay, well, hey, welcome to the club, guys. I've been there. I've done that. So let me coach you and let me help you with some of the ways that I use to keep myself from not getting things done. And also, just personal, whatever it was, personal development related. Then I found that it started to funnel down. It started to become clearer and clearer to me what I what would excite me and what wouldn't. And so it would really excite me to talk to people about doing their business, getting their business going. And it really excited me to talk to people about how they can improve uh, their social projection. And then, of course, it started to dawn on me that I was really good at being able to make things that are hard to understand a little bit easier to understand because I just, I don't like complicated. I don't like complicated. I like simple, give me something tangible that I can hold on to and say, okay, this makes sense. Let me go with it. And so that's where I came into the personal development, uh, with regard to racial sensitivity. And, my husband, who is white, he said to me, I don't know, does that work together? I said, honey, if you're working to be a better ally, that is a personal development area. You're personally developing your ability to see and make a difference in the world as it relates to how you walk in the world. So that is totally personal. He was like, oh, okay, I see what you mean. So that's where I am with my coaching business. I love coaching because not only do I get to help you, like give information, I get to hear where you are and ask questions about where you are and why you're where you are. So I'm constantly learning as well as sharing the learning that I have. So it's a very, any coaching relationship is a very much, as far as I'm concerned, a give and take type of situation. I'm learning about you, you're learning about what you want, and you're also learning about me, which really creates a personal relationship that then helps to propel, because there's a proverb that says, if you want to go fast, do it alone. If you want to go farther, do it together. And I feel that that's really the basis of coaching. It's a journey that you're taking with someone so that you can go farther and not necessarily faster, and then you get there and you're kind of like still in your head, in your procrastination, in your whatever it is that makes you crazy, in your overwhelm. You are more relaxed, you have someone to tap into that can help you and that can say, hey, you're kind of getting off track over here. I thought that this is what you said you wanted. It's okay to change your mind, but if you change your mind, you have to change your plan. You kind of have to shift and shuffle. So that's where I am with my coaching. And I forgot the last part of your question.
No, that's beautiful, and I love that, because again, we've obviously talked before, and I said to you, like, I having done a lot of personal development work myself, a lot of spiritual work
Yeah,
myself. you know I think all these issues that are kind of coming up around race, and when you share that with me, that you're using that angle, and I was like, oh, that's beautiful, because in a way it's just you know they're real issues that need to be talked about, but they're actually not. It's not just like that's one group that needs to deal with it. It's like we all need to figure it out together, and it's
yeah,
not like we want to just be an ally to kind of tick a box, or like be seen as
yeah,
a good person. I really
yeah,
believe we can't heal unless we really I don't think anybody can look at themselves that honestly, like in the mirror, and say my life is great, when there's certain issues that really are not okay. And
right.
that's really what you're doing, right? Like, you're kind of really using that as a way of looking at issues that are deeper than what kind of is looking at on the surface.
Yeah. So what's interesting, and I was just thinking about this because I just read an excerpt. I just was reading this morning because I'm reading White Fragility again,
Yeah.
because that's my book club book for July 1st. And so I'm reading it, and she talks about plausible deniability. And do you know what that is?
All right.
Plausible deniability is, it's really a legal term.
Mm-hmm.
And I when I in 2003, I started working for the general counsel of a very large corporation. I was his executive assistant, which meant that I did his travel and I managed his calendar, and I just basically kept his head on straight. That was my job. One thing that he never gave me access to were his emails. And it didn't bother me, didn't offend me, because he was a great boss. He believed that I could do my job. He allowed me all the whatever I needed to do my job, and he was never there, breathing down my neck. I understood a little ways in that the reason he did not give me access to his email was because of plausible deniability. If for any reason there were to be a lawsuit and they were to begin questioning people around, right? And they would question me with regard to him, I could, without any uh without any problem, say, I don't know, because I've never looked at his email. I had plausible deniability.
Mm-hmm.
He was protecting me from having to uh, fabricate any truth or being conflicted about saying anything that I thought maybe would get him in trouble,
Mhm.
where, I saw something different in his email per se.
Yeah.
Not that he was a shady person, but
Yeah.
he was a general counsel, right? You understand? And
Mhm.
so he would be under a lot of scrutiny if anything were to happen. And so he buffered me by giving me plausible deniability, right? When she mentioned plausible deniability in her book, she says that white people have plausible deniability. They have been buffered in a way where they do not see necessarily what's happening to people, to Black people, and to non-white people. When they do, they can, when they do see it, they can say, well, I think that maybe this, or this could be the reason that that happened because that's their reality. But they can deny, they don't have to live in it. They can plausibly deny that they've never been exposed to it. So therefore, they're not racist, or therefore they don't know anything about racism, right? Whereas racism is not an act, it is a system.
Mhm.
And those who benefit from that system also are and within that system, it's very difficult. One of the reasons why it's very difficult for white people to actually say, God, this is really, really a problem, is because they benefit from day one from that system.
Yeah.
So honestly, what they're saying when they're saying that they want to be allies, and if they're saying, I want to do more, I don't want to feel powerless, I want to see things uh, equal, they're saying, I want to dismantle this system that has benefited me my birth on, and has benefited my forefathers before me. I want to dismantle this system and now become vulnerable to being seen as white, being seen as a person who is now in an equitable system and therefore not benefiting in the same way that this system had caused benefit. That I can understand and is the knee jerk reaction. And that is why it's so hard for white people to really dig into, without the true desire, into racism and what it is, what it means, and what you have to confront now because of the system that you benefited from, right? Plausible deniability says, well, I don't do things that are racist, therefore I am not racist. But you plausibly deny the fact that you benefit from this system. So if you consider it, it's a huge, huge task to dismantle.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing to dismantle. And the reason Black people say, we don't have the problem, you do, and you need to fix it, is because this racial racist system was built and breathes and lives by uh, by your continued actions that you're not aware of many times, because I've heard people say, well, I'm not a racist, I don't do XYZ. It's not that it's not that simple. But there are things that you do, or that you choose not to see, that allow the system to remain in place.
Yeah.
So it's it's tumultuous. It's
Mm.
tumultuous. It's hard. It's a hard thing, but I think it's hard work that has so many benefits. companies that, and this is one of the things that I'll be talking about in the workshop, but companies that actually put in place a true diversity initiative, which means that they allow their employees to come to work 100% with their ideas, their cultures, everything that makes them who they are, do far better than companies that are still stuck within this system and shutting out people or expecting people to conform
Mm.
to what is considered the norm. You think about it, how crazy is it? How crazy is it that there would even be one norm for so many cultures and so many colors, so many of such a rainbow of people and so such a diverse world of culture? Why would there be one norm?
Yeah. And
Makes no sense.
yeah. Oh, that was really interesting, and I hadn't like heard you say that one before. But that, even as you're talking, I'm like, my mind's going, and I like understand what you mean. Like, it is, of course, for most people, which is why it's so strongly linked to our own personal development, our own spiritual development. Because I mean, of course, for people, I mean, I've been brought up with extreme privilege, and I know how much work I've done on myself internally. But there's still, I mean, and like I said, a lot of people haven't done that kind of work. There's a fear, right? Like, even with all the privilege you have, still most of us are dominated by fear. So that's why
Yeah.
most people don't want to go and look at those things, because it's like, I feel like I'm already not, do you mean? And that's the reality, right? Like, I mean, I know it for myself. Like, it feels like you're not even getting your life together with all your privileges. Do you know what I mean? Like, but you know what I mean? Like, that's the real fear for, I think, a lot of people, because it's internal, right? Like, because it's not life. What really makes us happy is not the money, it's not the material things. And I think that's, as a society, where we've gone so wrong. And I think that's why so many, I'd love to hear your thoughts, what you think, because I really think the only way to shift that is really to work with individuals and shift their own personal consciousness to feel
Right.
okay, right? Like, to make them feel okay that I can actually go and go, like you said, it's not just race, it's everything. Like, we are trying to always make people fit into boxes.
Everything, everything, which is why it's not exactly, it's, it in a large part, uh, the reason that the race comes into play, why it's important to say white people,
Mm.
is because white people are not used to hearing themselves referred to as white people
Yeah, yeah.
in anything. They're not used to not seeing white as being right or being centered. So once you start to do that, you start to shift someone, like, why do they keep saying white people? Well, you say black people all the time, right? Everybody, other people always say black people all the time, or Latino people, or, Chinese, or this or that, or,
Mm.
yellow, red, whatever, right? But white people are always just people.
Mm.
White people are always just people. So where we're trying to get to is where people are people. Now, the reason that it's so important right now with black people is because when you look at the hierarchy of it all, black people were placed at the bottom.
Mm.
So that's like probably the worst thing in a racist system's hierarchy that you could be, is
Mm.
black, right? So it's important. So then people are like, well, why do Black Lives Matter? And why do Black people have their own this? And why do they have their own that? Because if you look at everything, right? Simple thing, band-aid, bandages. Whose skin color do bandages match? Right?
Yeah.
Simple little things, right? Shoes that are beige to me are called nude. And I'm constantly on a, that's not my nude. When I'm naked, because nude is not a color, nude is an act. Nude is a way of being, right? So when I am nude, I don't look like that. So how could those shoes be nude? How? It's not, there's a disconnect,
Mm.
right? Um, when you, she made an interesting point. When you go to a hospital or you go to a law firm, you walk in, chances are you're expecting that the doctors are going to be right. And if they're not, you're almost shocked. You're almost like, oh, he must have been exceptional or she must have been exceptional. No, it's not that. It's that there's a system in place to make sure that that few people, go go up, go into that space. But when you go to the cafeteria or you see someone who's cleaning up the hospital, you see Latinx and Black people doing that kind of work. So in your mind, you begin to correlate these things. Oh, white people are up here and everybody else is down here doing all the grunt work, doing all this, doing all that down here. And so it's it's just so convoluted, and it's
Mm.
so what needs to happen is, and so someone asked me the other day, it was like, well, what if someone just doesn't have time? I think I talked to you about
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
or
yeah.
if I just don't have time, well, then I don't have time, because if I'm putting the time to even learn about my history and my culture because you've stripped it away from me, then you need to find time to figure out your place, your place in your culture and how you fit into this, and then be open to answering the questions. If you're not open to asking the questions, then no one can answer them. And if you're only willing to ask them only to counter them because of your defensiveness, whatever defenses you feel you need to put up, then again, it's really hard to have the conversation with you, because what I'm saying is not personal. I'm not saying to you, Jen, you, Jen, I've never met you in person, but it's your fault that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is the system is here to benefit you. And if you understand that, then you also understand that it is up to you to dismantle this system, because it's really not my problem. It's my oppression. It's what keeps me in a certain place, but it's really your problem, because if you don't dismantle this, then you're going to pass this on to your children, and these things that keep happening are going to keep happening, because honestly, Black people aren't going anywhere. Right?
Yeah. Well, it's like I love what you said there, even like, because it's so true. Even like as you were saying, like white people, it's true. Like it's so uncomfortable to be called a white, and and I haven't like dealt with that in a long time, because it's not comfortable. But that's what it is. Like it has to feel uncomfortable for a period of time to move past it, because and I love what you just said there as well. Like it's not learning to not take it personal. Do you know what I mean? Because it is not an attack on you, who you are as a person,
Right?
but it is some, like it's almost like it's a stage that everybody needs to kind of go through. And
Yep.
again, I know this from, like said, I've not done specific work on like, these conversations are very new to me, but having done a lot of personal work, I know there's always, before the light, do you know what I mean, there's always a period of
Yes.
like discomfort where you're like, oh, I
Yes.
don't like looking at this, but
Yes.
you can't be free of it, right? And I think it's crazy to think. I think everything that's happening in the world, like I said, again, COVID was just the first, like the from the climate problems that we have, and I think people keep saying like they want to just have it go back to normal. Like I really are hoping that we do not go back to normal, because normal is just going to keep creating these same problems, and it's going to get more and more dramatic, worse and worse and worse, and until we're really willing
Yes.
to just clean up, right? Like and do that kind of work. And I just want
Yes.
to mention one thing as well, because I know you've said this to me before, like said, is this you just mentioned it as well, like it's because it's so easy for us to, what happens to most white people, if you talk about anything related to race, our defenses immediately go up, and we're trying to defend ourselves and be like, oh well, I'm not racist, and I've done this myself, right? Like I'm like I've never done anything wrong. And you made a really powerful point, and maybe you can talk about that as well, because it almost, if we can learn to not do that, because that actually allows it doesn't allow the other person to really just voice and be heard, and
Exactly.
actually just made, it's not about attacking you, it's just about like making them like understand, like, this is how I
Right.
feel. And
Right. 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 Because if you take it at its simplest form, you've got kids on the playground, and one kid um comes up and says, you know, little Bobby Sue hit me and it hurt me, and Bobby Sue says, well, I didn't mean to hurt you. And you said, but yeah, I know you didn't mean to hurt me, but you did hurt me. And Bobby Sue says, well, because I didn't mean to hurt you, I'm not going to apologize because that's not what I meant to do. And they walk away.
mm,
What is this child going to learn? Oh my God, I can't even say what I'm feeling
mm,
because all of a sudden she's sad and she's upset or she starts to cry. And now everyone's going to be like, oh, Bobby Sue, are you okay? It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's not a problem. And here the child who has been hurt might not be as well, why did you make Bobby Sue cry? This little black child who came over and said, I've been hurt. Well, why did you make Bobby Sue cry? Well, Bobby Sue hit me first. It hurt
mm,
me. And I was just trying to say that it hurt me. Well, you didn't have to say it that way.
mm,
Or you didn't have to really, did you have to make her feel bad about it? Like, it hurt me, right? And this is the conversation. It hurt me. I am hurt.
mm.
Yes, but Bobby Sue is crying. Why did you have to make Bobby Sue cry? And this is how the century gets switched. So
Yeah.
instead, and this is also the reason why a lot of people are like, look, I don't want to tell you anymore. You can go out and read it. You can do your research, and things like that. Because after I'm done doing all of that, Bobby Sue's tears are more important than me being hurt,
Yeah.
right? Those policemen's jobs or being policemen is more important than the fact that they killed a man,
Yeah.
right? You killed a man. Well, what did he do? It doesn't matter what he did at all. If he didn't, short of shoot at you so that you shot at him to defend yourself, what he did is moot. You killed him while he was on the ground and unable to do anything. Yes, but what did he do? That is a lot of what people are, some people are like, well, but what did he do? He must have done something to
Mm,
make them. No, he didn't. What you're failing to understand is that we're telling you this man was killed. Those guys are wrong. What you're trying to do is shift the narrative, place them in the center as the victims, and forget about the victim because you cannot relate or do not want to relate to the victim. But you're not racist, right? So if we want to put a definition to who is a racist is someone who benefits from the racist system and chooses to stay in that system, right? Who chooses to stay and, live in their plausible deniability that the system even exists. That is a racist. The racist, and so the loudest racists are the ones who are going to be out there calling people, nigger, and they're the ones who are going to be out there shooting people that are jogging, and they're the ones who are going to be out there saying, well, blue lives matter. Well, you take that uniform off, you're not a blue life anymore, are you? No one knows that you are a police officer. When I am able to take off my skin, we can talk. Until then, it's not the same thing, right? It's not the same thing. And so those are the people those people who allow themselves to stay within that system, they are the ones who are racist. As I always tell people, I'm like, I don't think you understand what racism means. I don't think you understand the meaning of the word, right? Because it's a system that has power, the power to hold other people down. So then when people say, well, it's reverse racism, like there's no such thing as reverse racism, because racism is having the power in your hands to make the decisions for other races. Black people do not have that power. Therefore, there is no reverse racism in this. No, there's just none of that, right? And so it's this the fragility that comes up. Oh, reverse racism, reverse discrimination. Um, you're prejudiced against me, and there all these things that you take on that are not yours, that do not even close to relating to you, that you take on so that you can remain in your plausible deniability and say, I'm not racist. They're racist against me. And it's reverse racism. And yeah, and I mean, if you try to look at it from a Black person's point of view, it's nuts. It's
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not.
it's the lack of it's a lack of compassion, isn't it? Like it's not being able to see from the other point of like view, but like, and again, and I never say like, I mean, again, including myself, because I know, again, I've never done it, been in situations of
Yeah.
race. We do this in every, this is not just about, we do this in all of our relationships with other human beings. Is we get so caught up in our own fears and our own drama stories that we don't have the capacity for compassion. But that's why I think it's so, like I said, as uncomfortable as it is, do you mean, like, to have the conversation, it's like you said it, like it's we this is why most people, I think, and I know this myself because I've had this in my own experience, like I said, being incredibly privileged in even like for myself, like having achieved a lot of things that I wanted to achieve, is you can easily put yourself in an own prison. That's how I used to think of it. Like I really felt in that prison, and I realized it was a prison that I had created. And I think that is why so many people are so unhappy, because it's I don't think it's our true nature as human beings to be like mean to it. Do you know what I mean? Like I think that's
Yeah.
not a
We're
true nature.
not. Yeah. Well, race is a construct,
Yeah.
and so it's a man-made construct. And I don't know. Somebody posted something and they said, well, how do you get rid of racism? And they attributed it to Morgan Freeman, which I'm like, really? But he said, then just stop talking about race. You stop calling me Black, I'll stop calling you white. And I'm like, it's not just that simple, simply because it has been eons that this has been going on. So it is not just that simple, right?
Mm.
But it's it's to me, it's everyone where they are can do something.
Yeah.
And if it's only starting with being able to recognize when your reactions are defensive, or if it's only being able to say, would I say this to someone if they were white? Or would I act this way if this person were white? And questioning yourself in those ways is the very basic of being able to do it yourself, like to start with yourself, right?
Yeah. Well, and what you're talking about there really in a way is like it's becoming more conscious of your own
Of
basic,
yourself.
of yourself and how
Absolutely.
you're acting and how you're interacting with the world, which is not going to just help in that sense, it'll help with everything that
Right.
you're doing.
Right. Because you'll be able to you'll not only be able to sense when you are reacting in a certain way to certain situation or what have you, you'll be able to understand or notice when someone else is doing what you used to do and you don't do anymore, and you're going, oh, that's because ABC. And
Mm.
you'll be able to speak to it better because you can say, you know what, I used to do this. And I think that it's because I was feeling this way and I changed it and started doing this instead. And it's worked better for me and it's worked better for me to help move the dismantling of the system forward,
Yeah,
right?
definitely. And I want to talk about as well, like I want to talk about as well, like what some I love what you've done, some initiative as well, because you're such a practical person and trying to give people practical tools around that. You said like you've been doing some work on helping because you've got, you know, like a son that's like living in a mainly like white community in a white school, like to help parents, give them some practical tools on what they can do. um
Right.
and I'd love you to share that. But before I did that, just the one thing I was thinking about as well, like what you just said there in terms of the, you know, like helping people become more, you know, conscious. Is there anything that you have an advice for, like, to people to not, to be able to do that without, I think the reason that most people can't do that is because they take it so, like you said, like they take it so personal and they judge themselves so much. Is there anything like that you have or that you've shared with people to like become more conscious without going down the, do you mean like judgment, you know, taking it so personal, but rather kind of having that detachment from it?
Right. That is actually something that I'm going to be teaching in the workshop.
Oh, okay, cool, perfect. Well, we're going to talk about your workshop at the end as well. So for people that want to join, you can. Awesome.
I do have an acronym and it is the Love Us acronym. And each letter stands for something that you can stop and do in order to examine yourself and to examine a situation or someone else and say, how does this fit or how doesn't this fit? Is this personal or is this just information and how I can kind of process through that? So yes, I do, but it's in
Awesome.
there.
Yeah, but even that, even just that, like I think that's a great, and I've heard you say this before, like it's just, you know, thinking of it more as just information rather than, do you
Yes,
mean that like,
yes, it is. It's always information.
mm,
Unless you are here with me and you're doing something to me, it is not, and I'm like, stop it. You're a horrible person. I don't want to be near you. That might be personal because you might be just a horrible person.
mm,
But when I say that you're a white woman, I'm not being mean. I'm stating a fact because you are a white woman. I'm a black woman. It's really simple. And
mm,
so, as a white woman, you benefit. As a black woman, I'm fighting against that. That again is just information. So, as you just give information, you just say, and you make the difference between things and situations. I think that if people could just shut off the ego and shut off the self and just listen,
yeah,
then you get so much more from it instead of um, feeling defensive like it's your fault. It's not your fault. You were born into this just as I was born into this. So it's not your fault. It's not my fault. What are we going to do about this faultless situation that we benefit from differently? That's all it is. What
yeah,
are we
that's a
going to do?
beautiful way of putting it. And it is, and it's, that's the thing, in a weird way, it's like by just communicating with each other and exchanging this information is really about moving both forward, right? Like it's about like how can we
Yeah,
grow through this together? Because like I said,
right.
I shared with you even like, you know, when we were talking about this kind of thing, because it's like I said, this happens in race, but it also happens even within our own families. And I think I shared with you like, you know,
Absolutely.
I have family members that sometimes you don't listen properly. You have that defensiveness, and there's such a gift in actually just being present with people and listening to them, and they gain and you gain. It's not like a win-lose, like you actually both win. That was a weird
Absolutely. It is a total win-win
yeah,
when you see people actually working towards that end. It's a beautiful win-win situation.
yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I have a son who's 13 years old. He's about to be 14 in September and going to high school. And when he was little, it was fine. It was easy. He's so cute. He's this, he's that. He's not a threat. But as he gets older, I know that he will now become that guy. He will become, and my son's biracial. So uh he he's caught between worlds, which is something that I will never understand. And I understand that there's certain things about my kids or what they go through that I won't understand because they're going through a completely different experience than I did, having both immigrant Haitian parents. At the same time, both my children do identify as Black. And so, because they identify as Black, they are going to have sensitivities to certain things that happen. And, you know, but also because kids are really comfortable with them, they may also encounter certain circumstances when things are said and done that are not ideal. But he's going into high school and he's going to be going out soon on his own with his friends. Right now, we can take him to see his friends if he needs to. We have a little bit of control over how he maneuvers in the world. When it comes time for him to manage himself, to maneuver himself in the world, it is my responsibility to say to him, look, I want you to enjoy this life. You are worthy. You are so loved and special to me and to your family, and you are important. Some people are going to try to make you not feel that important. They're going to make you feel as if because you are Black, you are less important. That is not truth. That is opinion. When you go out, though, you must be aware that you don't know when you're going to encounter those people who think you to be not worthy. So you have to maneuver yourself in a way that you do not draw that aches to you. You do not draw it to you. So if you're out with your friends, you make sure you're not acting too crazy because now all of a sudden there's a threatening situation because because you're being a kid. It's that simple. And you want to make sure that you don't draw undue attention to yourself by any police because you don't know which ones are lunatics and which ones are the good ones, because it's very hard for the good ones to actually weed out the lunatics, because then the good ones get dangled out there on their own because the lunatics think, well, he said something, so let's not give him the backup or give him the help that he needs while he's out in the street. It's insidious, these things. We think, well, why are there, these police officers out there and they're mad at us for protesting them, but they're not protesting their own people who are doing the bad thing. Now, some people might say, well, you guys are out there protesting the police. Why aren't you protesting Black on Black crime? Well, we are. There are a lot of things that are in place for us to work on that situation. But Black on Black crime is made up just as uh, because you never hear, and there are gangs in all of these other nationalities. You don't hear white on white crime. You don't hear Asian on Asian crime. You don't hear Latino on Latino crime. You don't hear Indian on Indian crime. You hear Black on Black crime, as if Black on Black crime is way up here and everybody else is just doing what they're supposed to do. It's a fantasy. It's an illusion. And so to say, well, why are you guys worried about them instead of worrying about Black on Black crime? That is deflection and that is not the conversation. So that never, so you don't, I would not even address that, as because when someone says something like that, it's kind of like, oh, you're not ready. You're not ready for that. It's okay, honey. That's all right. You're not, because if you say something that simple, you're just not ready to hear the truth. You're not ready to hear that has nothing to this. The price of tea in China has nothing to do with the price of mangoes in Mexico.
Yeah.
It's, you're talking about two different things here. And so it's moot. So so what I've done is I I wrote the blog post for white moms about the talk. The talk is a talk that every Black family has with their children about how to show up in the world so that they can come home at night, which is not a thing in white families.
Mm.
And because it's not a thing in white families, but it is a thing in Black families, were my son to be going out with more Black kids, I would have a different fear. I wouldn't fear that the kids would be getting him into trouble. I would fear that that group of kids would be attracting undue attention from the police, because where two or three are gathered who are Black, there must be a problem,
Mm.
right? But he's going out with white kids. And so that I'm like, well, I think that his friends' parents should probably have a talk with their kids to understand how certain things that they might do that they take for granted may put their friend, my son, in jeopardy. And so I wrote that article with points for parents to go through and have a talk with their kids, especially if they have friends who are Black or of other nationality or non-white. Because at the end of the day, I can't be there. I was there this whole time, but I can't be there when he goes out into the world. I need to know that I'm doing my part to help somebody understand how to keep him safe when I can't be there. Because
Yeah.
there's only so much I can do. So I can give him information and,
Yeah.
and
And
you know,
yeah, and
back
I
it
thought
up.
that was so beautiful because when you said that, like, and that's what you were doing, I thought that was amazing because I think that is in a way like you're giving again, you're giving education to people. You're helping people because again, like even when you shared it to me, like, and I said to you, I mean, I don't have children, but immediately, even when you told the story, and that is something that you have to do as a Black mother to tell your child that if they're around white people, they can easily get into trouble and he has to be more careful. Like even within myself, like I said, I instantly like there's just an instinctive like anger that flares up and just like injustice of like why should one child like he's just because I think he even said to me like I just want him to be a kid, but the reality is he has to be. Do you mean there's just certain things we have to do that are different? And
Yeah,
I think by sharing that and being vulnerable and like and being able to share those kind of information with other people, I think that's, do you mean, because that's an education that's allowing people to really go, whoa, that's not right. Do you mean like we need to make changes? Like no
yeah,
family, do you mean like no mother should have to go through that and have to, you know, that be the reality for her and for us, to be so different. And
right.
I think that was
So that
really,
and it's important too that especially moms or wannabe moms to understand that talking about racism is necessary,
mm,
because when you don't talk about racism, when you don't talk about what's happening and the possibilities of it all, and you don't, that's not a conversation you have at home. When the kids grow up and they go out, it becomes an uncomfortable conversation.
mm,
Now imagine if you grew up with hearing things about racism, not just that it's bad, but how it works, the system works, and also watched your parents be anti-racist.
yeah,
Then when you go out into the world, you not only have the language and the understanding that it's not personal to you, you understand how to be anti-racist. And you can, when you see something happening that's unjust, you're more likely to say something because you're not uncomfortable talking about race.
yeah,
You can say to someone who's doing something wrong, you see some white person doing something wrong to a Black person or person of color, and you say, that's not right, you shouldn't be doing that. And they turn to you and they try to shame you, and you say, you're not ashamed because you're used to having these conversations. And that's what's really important, because I read a statistic, was it today or yesterday? It says that kids develop their their sense and their ideas about race as early as preschool.
Mm.
So if you start talking to them about race, it's not going to traumatize them and it's not going to make them feel, strange. Kids have a huge capacity for learning and understanding as long as you make it simple enough.
Yeah.
So if you start to talk to them about certain things, then when they're shaping their ideas about race, then it becomes more of a positive and an understanding so that they have the tools to actually go out there and be anti-racist. This is the best way to dismantle the system, right? Um, they say that, millennials are, not as racist. I mean, hey, look, they all voted for Barack Obama. They put Barack Obama in the office, right? So there's no racism. The problem is that the millennials never spoke about race in their homes either. So they are entrenched, they are in this racist system. And when it comes up, they're like, well, it's the what I did. I voted for Barack Obama. I don't do this. I have done this. I've given money. I've done this. I've done that. But not realizing and sometimes pushing back on the idea that sure you did, you still benefit from this racist system, and some of the words and the ways that you are still are entrenched in the system. Because if you look around your office, how many black people do you have in that office? How many other people of color do you have in that office, right? If you look around your neighborhood, how many black families are living in your neighborhood? How many people of color, other people of color are living in your neighborhood? And when you start to look at it that way, you realize that you've bought into the system. You've bought into the idea that if you're living in a neighborhood that is mixed, it's probably not safe. Which is so untrue because I grew up in a black neighborhood and I never felt unsafe. I walked blocks to the bus stop. I played outside with my friends. I never felt unsafe in my neighborhood. But
Mm.
if a white person came to my neighborhood, they'd be like, "Oh, okay." So it's really funny to me. We use words that trigger the understanding of race without mentioning race. We use, and we it becomes more and more nuanced. Where in the 60s it was, nigger and negro and this and that, in the 70s, and then you had the Jim Crow laws back then. And then in the 70s, it was more of, the Ku Klux Klan and, white separatists and so we were like, oh my God, those people are so racist. I'm not that person. It's not that anymore. It's not that. It's this. And those people need to buy into the ideology of this. And you're benefiting from this. So you may not agree with what they're doing, but you're still benefiting from that. So it's multifaceted. So
Yeah.
I am very much about helping people along their educational journey. I can't give you all the information, but if you are doing the work, I am here to answer questions. I am here to point you in certain directions. I am here to help you with things that, I'm Jen, you are an ally. I consider you an ally. You can go out there and read a lot of things and get a lot of information, but there's still things that you're not going to understand and that you're going to need to ask questions about. You're going to say, but I'm not sure that I understand how this makes sense in this context or what have you. And that's where I would come in and say, okay, well, let me help with that. Because as with anything, you still need some type of guidance of someone who has a little bit more information than you do in anything, right? Even as a coach, I still need to have coaches. I still need to have a coach of my own to help me to understand how to do certain things, even though I can find a lot of information on my own. So that's where I come in. That's where the personal development with racial sensitivity comes in. You may be doing the work, but they're always going to be questioned. They're
Yeah.
always going to be questioned because your lens is always going to be so different than mine. But individually, all of our lenses are so different from each other. So being able to tap into is far more productive than being afraid to ask questions or to, I know one of the things that I hear a lot is from a lot of white people, and they say, well, I'm just afraid to ask a question because it might sound stupid. I'm not afraid of stupid questions. I don't worry about stupid questions because honestly, sometimes you'll ask a question and I'll go, wow, I didn't ever think about it that way. Right. And so it's like there are no stupid questions. Or they're say, not that they think it's a stupid question, but they'll be embarrassed to ask. Well, we're talking about race, man. Let's just put it all on the table. There's no embarrassment, there's no shame, there's no reason not to put it out on the table. If you feel that you have a certain point of view because of this certain instance that happened and you don't want to say anything about it, then you are holding on to that and you're always going to react to something that pushes against that situation, right? But if you are willing to open up because of that situation, maybe you got mugged by someone who was black. I don't know. It's possible you got mugged by someone who's black, so now you're constantly afraid. On the one hand, you might need counseling because muggings, that's a PTSD sort of thing. On the other hand, does everyone need um to be put into that box, right? We know that 90% of serial killers are white males between 25 and 35. Are we going to then not trust white males between the ages of 25 and 35 when we see them walking down the street? Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's the same thing. It's like, you can't, it's, so whatever it is that you feel is blocking you from being able to process the information, talk about it,
Yeah.
right? Talk about it, say something about it, because then once you open that up, then someone can say, oh gosh, I understand, I empathize with you, but this is why it does not apply to everybody, or this is my view on how you can help yourself get through that, right?
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
therefore be able to be more open to more information that comes your way. There are
Yeah.
going to be blocks.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. And I mean, that's the thing. Like everything is progress, right? Like you're not progress is messy. It's not gonna like all like go like
No.
perfectly dissolve all tomorrow.
Yes.
But it's even for myself, like I know, like even like just said, just taking the initiative over the last few weeks, like to connect with people like yourself and just have the conversations, right? Like you learn so much. And like I said, it's not just like you learn it for one, like I said, it's not just about one specific topic, because like what like you were saying, like it's not just about children like being, having that confidence to be able to talk about race as they're growing up. That goes into all different, like if we're talking about men and women, if we're talking about different issues, do you mean like that same skill can actually be applied to just making them more aware? I mean, we're always just trying to become better people, aren't we? I mean, at the end of the day,
Right.
that's
Right. We're all trying to personally develop.
yeah, well, that is, and it's. I mean, I always say
Yes,
like if we did everything perfectly, it'd be boring as well. So we need to have something
it
to
would
like.
absolutely be boring, right? So, but it's understanding that when you're learning, and especially when you're digging into something that is so entrenched and
Yeah,
so um it's 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 a lightning rod issue. It's so uh, it's wrapped up in people's emotions and people's sense of self and people's sense of worth and people's sense of history.
Mm.
It's wrapped up in so many things, that it's a growing process for everyone.
Yeah.
And tears will come, but
Mm.
to understand that those tears are not to be centered. They're fine, but they're not to be centered. It's to understand that your anger is gonna come. You're gonna be mad, but not to center your anger and then shut off someone else's anger, right? Um, for a long time, I would say to myself, okay, you don't want to perpetuate the angry Black woman stereotype. But at the same time, why am I not allowed to be angry for things that are legitimately angering,
Mm.
right? Because you are going to feel afraid of my anger. Why is my anger scary to you?
Mm.
Right? And those are things that you want to talk about. And when you start talking about those types of things, people really get scared. They get really in their feelings. They're like, oh my God, you know? But hey, that's how it works. It bubbles up, it comes out, it's got to come out, it bubbles up. And if you've got the right person that you're talking to, if you're especially if you're doing it with a coach, like,
Yeah.
um, there's space there. Take that space. Take that space for the anger, for the crying, for the whatever. And um, personally, I say I don't center you. If you're doing this work, I do not center you. I empathize with you, and I allow the space for you to go through those emotions, because God knows you're going to need to go through those emotions. But at the end of the day, that just shows that you're growing, and I allow for that growth. I allow for, what you're feeling, and then I give you or share with you or help point you in the direction of the information that you need to help you grow beyond that pain or that sensitivity or that angst that you have, so that you get to the next point of pain and sensitivity and angst. Because that's just how it works.
But it
Right? You know that?
but it really is, because it's, even as I've heard you talking about, I'm thinking like it really is. I mean, we really have just one story. As like I said, our misery as human beings, all our issues really just comes from a time that we really chose fear over do you mean the loving parts of ourselves? And that fear manifests in, like I said, if that fear of, different color people's skin, or men and like women have the same issue. Do you mean like we have, it's just fear that we're just projecting on all these different things. But if we're not like, and I agree so much with you said, like, I think the best, have conversations with people that you feel safe around, right? Like, do you kind of feel like you're like, okay, I can have a conversation with this person, even like when we have connected, I'm like, oh, I feel like this is a person I can ask questions to, I can, we
Right.
can connect, and
Yeah.
find those people around you, because that is like, it's just a matter of unfolding that to me stuff, because otherwise
Yeah.
you're always imprisoned, do you mean, by that? Because one thing that you were talking about, like I said, if you have a trauma of somebody, like for example, like somebody's been, you've had a bad experience, like somebody that's Black that's mugged you, it just
Yeah.
reminded me of a conversation I was having recently with a lady that was Black as well. And she said she'd had sexual assault happen to her, and she said, like, I know that I'm very suspicious around men, right? Like she said, and I lock the door if I see a man, like, do you mean in my car? But she said, like, I know that's an issue I need to deal with, because I don't want to live my life like that. I don't want to be afraid of everybody. But it's,
Right.
I acknowledge I have a trauma, and I have to do the work, because I don't want to live in this crazy world where I'm constantly scared of everybody. And
Right.
and
Right.
and I'd really love to as well, like, before you tell as well, about your workshop and everybody else, how they can, know more about you. One thing that really stuck with me as well, when you gave your speech at the, I think it was at your school, right? Like
It
the,
was a vigil. It was a vigil.
oh,
It
okay,
was a town vigil. Yeah.
okay. And you talked about, like, not, like raising your son, and not wanting to project your fears onto your child, which I thought was, so beautiful, and like such a, and I think this is something like maybe you can share and talk about, like, how, how do you even do that? And like, because it is like probably one of the harder things for a mother, no matter if you're, Black or white or anybody, not
I-
to project our fears onto the next, yeah, onto our
Yeah.
children.
Yeah. It it is hard.
So what? You don't
Um,
just have a magic solution?
yeah, no, just do this. So because I decided so early on that that was something that I didn't want to do, and honestly, it probably started when I was putting him in the water, and I was going, and I was really freaking out. Like I was really like, oh my god, oh my god, and and I thought to myself, well, he's okay. So is it just me that's afraid? Am I afraid that he's going to drown and therefore I am projecting that on him and I don't want him to be afraid of the water.
Mm,
So I had to so it was an internal dialogue and it's a constant internal dialogue. My kids um my kids talk to us about whatever. Our house is a safe space. They talk to us about whatever. And I feel that the only reason that is the case is because when issues or anything came up, I never reacted.
mm,
And fear is a reaction, right?
mm,
Oh my God. Because you think about the 100 things that can happen when a kid tells you that they've done something or, all those things. You think about the 101 things that could have happened. And you go, oh my God, don't you ever do that. And oh,
mm,
both my husband and I had gotten to a place where it was like we got the information, we're like, oh, okay, and listen,
mm,
okay, all right, and then counsel. So instead of projecting the fear of the thousand things that are in your head that are not even in their head,
mm,
right? You take the information, you take the most important point that you can make about it and then you counsel them on that. Don't worry about all the other stuff. They'll figure that out eventually. But you take the most important point. Well, honey, all right, you did that and good. That's probably not the best thing.
mm,
Here's why. One point, one thing. And then when they take that, you explain it as they can get it. They take that, they go with it. Here, what has happened is no one has freaked out. No one has gotten pissed off. No one has gotten in trouble per se. Now, mind you, if my son does something that he's not supposed to do, that's different. But, when situations arise outside, there is discipline, but no one is traumatized.
yeah.
But everyone has information, right? Case in point, um, my daughter, when she was, oh my gosh, I think she was 4. Let me see, 2, 3. She's about 3.5, 4 years old. She was upstairs. She was taking a shower. And I said to her, okay, when you're done taking a shower, because she could do it by herself, she's a big girl. Like, so, my husband and I are downstairs watching a movie. And I said, when you're done taking the shower, let me know so that I can come and I can do your hair.
Mhm.
Okay. So she's done with her shower. She decides that she's going to take care of her hair. Now, one thing that I that I would do is when I would get to a knot that was like a real knot, I would take the little knot and I would snip it, right? So I'm downstairs with my husband. I'm like, it's been a while. Where is she? Right? Like, I'm sure she's done. So I come upstairs, and the first thing my daughter says, Mommy, I never noticed my hair was so short back here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So she goes, and I look, and she took the scissors and she had snipped because she couldn't get through it. And she saw me do it. So she was doing it. And and I thought to myself, oh my God, first of all, in order to see in the mirror, she had to get on a stool,
Mm,
right? Then these are not children's scissors. These are real hair cutting scissors that she was using. So can you imagine all the horror that went through my head about what
mm.
and I said, okay. I said, I said, did you cut your hair? She says, "Oh, mommy, I only cut out the knot. I couldn't get through the knot, so I only cut out the knot." I said, "Oh, honey, you cut it too short." And in my head, I'm like, "Oh my God." Right? I said, "Okay, honey." I said, "You know what? That looks really weird. You know what? Let's cut your hair."
Mm.
So I cut the back so that it looked cute and you couldn't tell. And I said, "Honey, the next time that you do this, I don't want you, you know, let mommy know. Okay? Next time, call mommy because these are very dangerous scissors and you're on a stool. And I would hate for you to fall off the stool and hurt yourself with those scissors." "Oh, okay, mommy." And that was it. I was freaking out in my head. No kidding. But there were no tears shed. She understood and she never did it again. And that's what I mean when I say I do not project my fear on my kids because I could have easily gone, "Oh my God, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be," it's that initial, right? And I
Mm.
was like, no tears were shed in this story. So, and everybody came out fine and she's never done it again. And I've never had to worry that she's going to do it. But it's that sort of thing. It's the why am I feeling afraid? What is making me afraid? I understand what could have happened. It didn't happen. Okay, now let's move on and let's just give information. We'll be okay.
Mm. I love
And
that. And yeah, that really reminded, because I've just finished the reading the book, like The Power of Now, and that's really, like, that's what I was just thinking, like, that's what it really means, like, not to go into the future, not going into the past, but just let me deal with the situation as it is right now.
right here. Yes.
And move
Yes.
forward. But that's really beautiful. That's amazing. And yeah, please tell us about, like, what you're, when you're doing the workshop, and how people, if they want to register, can register for it, and just how people can find out more information. Because again,
Oh,
that's why I wanted
awesome.
to do these conversations, because I think you have so much knowledge and wisdom to share with people. And
Oh, awesome. Thanks. So I'm doing a workshop that's called Educate to Elevate, um, uh, coaching on racial, workshop on racial sensitivity. And it is going to be on July 7th from 2 p.m. Eastern time to 4 p.m. Eastern time. So I put it kind of in the middle of the day, but anyone who registers for the workshop, if they are unable to make it, will receive a recording because I'm going to be recording the whole thing and sending it to anyone who registers for the workshop. And basically, that workshop is we're going to be talking about what is racism, what is prejudice, what is discrimination, how they differ, and how they work. We're going to be talking about code words and phrases that white people use in order to not speak about race, but to speak about race, and that we understand and we go, yeah, okay, so that's what they're saying. um, we're going to be talking about the Love Us acronym, LOVEUS acronym, which is a simple tool that you can use um, to kind of diffuse yourself and be able to be in the moment and understand, to work to understand how to be a better ally. We're going to talk about what allyship is, and we're going to talk about what anti-racist is and what it entails. So it's 2 hours. It's going to be chock full of information. So I'm probably going to be talking a whole lot faster than I did here, but you'll be able to go through it. And I'm planning on having a workbook for it so that you can kind of work through it yourself. My website is sedruolamaruska.com, and you can go there. I think you can go there, go to sedruolamaruska.com/blog, and the link to register will be in the sidebar uh, for this. Registration is from today, June 22nd, to Friday, June 26th. So it's 1 week so that I can prepare and know how many people are going to be in this workshop so that I can make sure that I am well prepared for those people. But like I said, it's on July 7th and from 2 to 4. And I'm really excited about it because my thing is to create a safe space. So it's going to be me talking for maybe an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, and then taking questions and answering questions on the video on the recording so that as many questions as we can get in at that time is what we're going to do. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm very excited. And I'm thank you so much for allowing me to talk about it and get it
No,
out there
awesome.
for
No,
everyone.
no, you're so welcome. I think it's, yeah, I'm sure it's going to be absolutely amazing. And that's what I mean. Like, we need more people to, like I said, put out those, kind of information and educate people. And like you said, create that open space that people can feel safe. Do you know what I mean? Like, in
There
and
are a lot of amazing Black women on Instagram who are doing a lot of amazing work.
mm,
I will be sharing them as well in the workshop, so that there's always there are always resources, right?
yeah.
I am a big believer in the tide raises many ships. I do not believe that that I need to do it and no one else can do it. There are a lot of people doing amazing things that I'm learning from as well, and that I continue to perpetuate. It's about amplifying all the voices so that more and more people can hear and learn and become allies so that we aren't the only ones screaming at the mountaintop going, oh my God, you know. But there are more voices, when we've got a choir, the more people you have, the more profound the impact. So I will definitely be sharing some of those, but I also share them on Instagram and sometimes on Facebook. So
And where's the best
follow
place for people to I can link up like your Instagram and like, is it Instagram
oh,
or
my
Facebook?
Instagram, everything is Sedruola.
Mhm.
Instagram is Sedruola, Sedruola. Twitter is Sedruola, Sedruola. And Facebook is Sedruola Maruska, my full name, all one word. And I do have a YouTube channel, and that's Sedruola Maruska, but I don't know if it comes up that way. So I have to work on that one. And there's not much there yet, but I'm planning on putting more video there. But
Oh,
everything is Sedruola or Sedruola Maruska. So if you
awesome.
plug in Sedruola in the Google,
Into the Google machine.
yes, you will find a lot. There's a lot about crochet because that's what I was doing before. There's a little bit about event planning, but now I think it'll be more about the coaching and what I'm doing right now. So
Awesome. And yeah, and also you'll send me the link and then I can link it up as well so for people can kind
yeah,
of make sure they can find you.
yes. Thank you
Awesome.
so much, Jen. It's been a
Oh,
pleasure.
no, thank you so much for sharing everything, and thank you so much for all the amazing work that you're doing. And yeah, I can't wait for everyone to like be able to hear all the things and like I said, go to the workshop as well.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.